Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And welcome to Sofa Reviews. Today we're watching FutureSport.
A TV movie loosely based on Rollerball, it stars Dean Cain as hero Trey Ramsey.
So we start in what is allegedly New Orleans in the year 2025.
Meanwhile, there are new developments in the Free Hawaii movement. Eric Tsai, the leader of the Hawaiian Liberation Organization, has disappeared 3 days after storming out of negotiations with Hawaii Governor McKenna. There is fear the militant organization may resort to terrorist acts to make a statement.
We're briefly introduced to the HLO before we cut to them committing an act of terrorism.
They start spying on the press event where we learn that they're waiting for 2 people, but apparently one of them isn't there yet.
Of course, the bad guy seems more concerned with looking at himself than anything else.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for. A Dean Cain sex scene.
Oh God, why would you put that in there?
Maybe you want your audience to know how much you hate them.
They have a brief chat explaining that one of the main driving forces behind people in this world is to get a high popularity index.
It's never really explained what this is though, to the point where Dean Cain doesn't seem to understand what PI means.
I didn't think that was possible, that anybody's PI index could be higher than yours.
We then cut to our other main character, Alex Torres, interviewing the creator of FutureSport, Fix.
Better get started.
Finally, a movie that shows Wesley Snipes can't do a good Jamaican accent.
And for some reason in the future, we use the Borg as cameramen.
They don't like me nagging him. You know, having a conscience can be expensive.
So can paying your taxes.
Thankfully, the interview is cut short when Trey arrives.
He has some tedious banter with Alex, which means the appearance of armed terrorists is a blessing.
The terrorists demand that Trey and Alex surrender themselves for crimes against Hawaii.
Instead, Trey gets all of his team to help him endanger the civilians by attacking the terrorists.
Of course, they easily beat them up until the police arrive, causing them to flee.
Yet again, the love interest is impressed by the hero's callous disregard for the lives of others.
Later, the film finally explains FutureSport.
FutureSport. 2 teams, 5 players each, and only one way to score. Put the ball in the goal.
Put the ball in the goal? What a refreshing and new concept.
As FutureSport has become the most popular sport in the world, this has led to a lot of money being invested into it, and a debate raised over whether it's lost the spirit of the sport.
Seriously, would you have been happier if I'd have said no to the league, Alex? Said no to this, the money, the fame, the glory, everything?
Well, she's your bitter ex-girlfriend, so yes.
And we finally get to see a game of FutureSport, which is done a lot better than the Rollerball remake.
Although sadly, we do occasionally get some RoboCop 3 style green screen effects.
And just to make things more interesting, if the player holds the ball for more than 5 seconds, it electrocutes them.
This is ultimately what causes them to lose the game, as Trey is too selfish to pass and so loses the ball, allowing the other team to score.
Of course, in the locker room, his ego prevents him from taking responsibility for the match and instead blames everyone else before we cut to some interviews.
They got an expression in Germany. Alles Glissen is nicht necessarily Geld.
Yes, but in Germany they probably say that in German, and the line you're going for is actually from Shakespeare.
Later, and Trey is moping around before Obake shows up to mock him.
Didn't you see the game?
Yeah, man, I saw it. Hurt my eyes.
Well, he is pretty ugly.
He heads off to discuss matters with his fiancée.
You don't have another season. If I marry you now, my PI rating will go into the sewer, and that is one place I do not intend to go.
Ah, love.
We see him in his house in LA where he's talking to his computer program.
Ms. Anarchy anticipated that possibility when she upgraded my programming last month. Something to do with saving the gene pool. Were your romance to fail, I'm instructed to play the following recording.
It's hard to believe just 4 little words could bring me so much pleasure, but here they are.
I told you so.
Pre-programmed mocking messages the moment someone receives a specific piece of bad news. The future is awesome!
After filtering through the torrent of abuse, fan taunting and fallen sponsorship deals, he gets a message from Alex to meet her.
They meet up and she explains that the HLO are quite dangerous while they listen in on their mechanical spider.
At least the terrorists are smart enough to listen in so they find out what Alex is up to.
Look, if you agree to speak out against him, I get my airtime, and we can force people to pay attention.
So now they actually have motivation to go after Trey and Alex, so it makes no sense that they were after them before.
Having heard enough, they decide it's time to go and kill them.
Instead of using guns, they decide to throw an explosive frisbee which goes into a car instead.
Trey wakes up afterwards in hospital while Alex turns out to be perfectly fine.
Once Trey's recovered, he goes to see Obake to hire some bodyguards for Alex.
Later we see Obake hacking into the HLO computer before cutting to Alex and Trey having dinner.
It tastes like Rohypnol.
So now we get an explanation for the main threat of the movie.
Comms Crime Pan-Pacific Brotherhood. They're sending a fleet to Hawaii. And in response, the North American Alliance has their entire military on alert. I mean, there could be a war.
And because Trey suddenly cares about other people, he suggests a game of FutureSport to decide ownership of Hawaii.
And just to clarify for viewers, it's the North American Alliance versus the Commonwealth,
who are clearly demonstrated to be the bad guys in this film because they're led by an English guy.
My name is Neville Hodgkins. I'm to be your team's government liaison officer.
Elsewhere, we see the HLO are plotting to make sure that they win, with the help of Obake.
And then he destroys some mannequins with holographic images on. As you do.
So we see the team training together, Trey having to work with his rival from earlier in the film, Becca.
Later, and they're surprised to discover that they'll be playing against two of their club teammates, because it's not as if people on the same team can be from different countries.
And of course, to further clarify that the Commonwealth are evil, the two teammates of Trey don't want to play.
I know you're going to make the people back home very proud of you.
Or else.
Because everybody knows that athletes play their best sports when they resent being there, because that makes it more like a real job.
Back in America, the coach tells Trey that what he's doing is noble, before Obake tells him it could be very dangerous.
And finally, Alex breaks into Trey's house to have sex with him in a way that's meant to be charming, rather than the creepy, soul-destroying sense of a woman desperate to get pregnant with anyone before she turns 40.
The next day, he gives her a locket before getting a threatening phone call.
Don't play in the game against the calm, or that back will be the least of your worries.
He shows up for training, only to find that the coach is missing.
Bizarrely, once found, they assume he's meditating, even though it's quite clear that he's dead.
Luckily, the robot spider stayed on the coach, so they can tell that it was definitely murder.
This angers Obake, but he finds that he's not in the best situation to negotiate his deal.
As they killed the coach, this will presumably cause the team to unite, working hard to win to honour his memory, and not actually affecting their ability to win because all the highly talented players are all still alive. It's a good thing terrorists are morons.
After this, Trey announces that he will be the coach, saying he has a cunning plan.
You want me to score? Did you experience any sharp blows to the head recently?
If I'm calling all the shots, everybody's gonna expect me to hog all the glory, and it makes perfect sense. So I'm gonna set a brand new FutureSport record in assists, provided, of course, you can put the ball in the goal.
He also brings in Obake to teach them street rules for the game.
5 hours before the game, Trey is chatting with Alex via his watch, before she gets kidnapped by the HLO.
Seemingly, the only security he has is any hurtful remarks his computer might make.
He runs off to tell his team, where we discover that he put a tracking device in the locket he gave to Alex.
You put a trace on Alex?
Paranoia is your friend.
Damn right.
Remember, kids, if you're ever in a relationship, make sure to obsessively stalk and monitor your partner at all times, because they're your property now and thus can't be trusted.
Trey decides that sports stars would be better at dealing with terrorists than the police, and the whole team heads off to help.
Not me. Mama Mayhew didn't raise no fools.
No, she was busy raising dickheads.
Once they arrive at the warehouse, they get trapped in a firefight before Obake and his friends can turn up.
Trey immediately realises that Obake must have been working with the bad guys, but doesn't seem too fazed by this betrayal.
They have another action scene complete with people flying around on hoverboards before Mayhew turns up to save Becca.
Well, I guess his mother raised a fool instead of a dickhead.
Elsewhere, the bad guy is about to kill Alex before Trey turns up to save the day.
Although, if he was going to kill her, why didn't he just do it earlier?
They start fighting, but Trey is an old man with a bad back and Scythe has amplified reflexes somehow.
Trey is easily beaten up until Obake shows up to roll a metal ball to him.
Having saved Alex, they head back just in time to have their game.
They start the game and one of the Commonwealth players is beating up Trey.
He takes a few hits to the back, but it's explained he can't use his substitute as he was shot in the rescue mission.
Of course, the commentators explain that all of this is illegal, so either the guy should have been sent off already, or there's no rules at this point and the American team should start fighting back.
Mayhew ends up having his leg broken, so Obake has to replace him.
In order to highlight the complete lack of logic in this film, Obake knocks out the guy who's been attacking everyone else and gets put into the sin bin for 2 minutes.
Now that the violent guy has been taken out, the rest of the Commonwealth decide to play a clean game and suddenly start winning.
The game is drawn with 20 seconds to go before Trey decides to use his hideous green screen powers to save the day.
Trey actually puts aside his ego enough so that Becca can score the winning goal.
They celebrate their victory with the crowd. Even the Commonwealth fans seem happy despite having lost.
Because they lost, the English guy has a go at one of Trey's team members.
You lost!
No, you lost! After all, I'm a hero of the people. PI rating 205? You are nobody. Perfect scapegoat.
He could still have you killed.
It ends with Trey turning down his shallow ex-girlfriend and deciding to stay with Alex.
And of course, the next day, the Commonwealth just declared war anyway, killing millions.
And in conclusion, despite being a TV movie, it has some good ideas. The idea of replacing war with sport, removing all the unnecessary bloodshed, is quite appealing for one thing.
Although it does clearly highlight the use of cheating, how people do anything to get ahead so it's not really a fair competition, and of course that ultimately the game could just be ignored anyway, so it is a nice if flawed idea.
Still, the game itself has some nice ideas as well. Despite being potentially dangerous, the ball electrifying the player for holding it for more than 5 seconds would reduce time wasting and encourage team play.
Yeah, and I can think of several football players that are in good need of electrocution. However, the whole concept of the PI rating is poorly explained. It kind of seemed like it might be a credit rating, yet why would Trey firing his PR firm make any difference on this? It might seem a bit of an odd thing to pick on, but as it's the sole character motivation for pretty much everyone in this world, the fact it can't establish what it means is like a massive plot point.
At least we get some nice development from Trey, who finally accepts that he shouldn't be selfish and arrogant. It's also nice that his team doesn't trust his intentions at first, and he has to use the firing of his PR team in order to prove his worth.
Of course, the worst character in this film is easily Obake Fix. He's just kind of there to look cool and hang around and seemingly know everything. It just feels a lot more like it's an ego trip for Wesley Snipes and makes the character quite dull and uninteresting.
At the end of the day, it's a well-intentioned little movie, and it's decent enough if you want to just waste some time.
Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, it's time to play FutureSport.
Ultimately, it's a poorly acted, dull and stupid film which at a mere 85 minutes feels far too long.
I don't like you.